you could level them up with AI. You could give a junior marketing person AI as a tool, and they can perform at a much higher level because they have an instant mentor.
You're listening to Build Up, a ZGM podcast. I'm Selena.
And I'm Jordan. And we're here to shake up the world of home builder marketing.
Selena, who's our guest on the show today?
Our guest today is Tim Sloan. He's the VP of Development and Management at Paperleaf. That's our sister company, and they specialize in web and mobile app development. And our episode today is all about AI. How cool is that?
That is cool. Obviously a very relevant topic as of late, and we're going to talk about how it all relates to brand and to home builders.
Here we go.
Hi, Tim. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us from our sister company, Paperleaf. Today, we're chatting all about artificial intelligence. To start off this conversation, I think it'd be really interesting to get your perspective on what actually is artificial intelligence and kind of what exists today, and then are we actually there with artificial intelligence? Do we actually have artificial intelligence yet?
Depends how you define intelligence. It's definitely artificial. Yeah, I think like artificial intelligence is kind of like, I think of it like an umbrella term. It's like it covers a lot of things. You know, there's real scientists and, math and code that goes into creating artificial intelligence. And they kind of chuckle because it's like, everybody's just using the big term, but the subtleties and the importance of what they're doing is very different. But in the common language, AI, artificial intelligence, is really like what we're talking about is, can computers interact with me in a more human way? And that we're there. It's the start of things. It's going to get better, but it's right now we're definitely there. What most people think of when they think of artificial intelligence is how they're interacting with chat, or maybe it's DALL-E for generating images or something like that. They're thinking, I ask the computer to do something and now it actually does it for me. In the AI world, there's so much more. There's things like machine learning, and there's different algorithms to generate the artificial intelligence. We don't need to get into those. Those aren't touching the public. We'll leave that to the data scientists. But in terms of AI, we're speaking to a computer and it's doing something for us, and we love it.
And we love it. Do we all love it?
I'm starting to love it.
Yeah.
I think when we had our initial conversation, Tim, you said something that was, I think, really helpful, because we use AI, I think, maybe a little too loosely in it is such a big world and a big space. Not everything is AI. There is generative AI, and what we're probably most used to is that generative AI. So I was hoping you could kind of explain that a little bit, and kind of that moment that we're in, and maybe the tools that are most popular.
So it's definitely a distinction to say, like, when we're asking the artificial intelligence to create something for us, to generate something for us, and it's worth making that distinction, because not always is AI creating something for us. Sometimes it's processing data or doing something else. So generative AI is a more narrow term than the bigger term. I like to think of it as, you have language, you use language, it goes into like this brain thing, and out comes, more language. Sometimes it's, you put in an image or ask for an image out, but it's images, language, they all get sort of distilled down into a bunch of numbers that a computer can process. And then it does some fancy stuff that even the scientists at Google don't really understand what's going on there. And then out pops something really fun and sounds almost human in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I've seen examples of, you could use AI to play games. You could use AI to create stories in the like of a different style, like write me Moby Dick in the style of Shakespeare. And do all these kinds of weird and slightly interesting things. But is it actually creating something, or is it just mimicking something?
It's probably even more mechanical. It's not even mimicking, it's calculating. So really what's happening is you give it some context, you give it some words, call it a prompt, call it context, whatever it is. You're giving it some instructions, and it's using those instructions and saying, what's the next most important word to go beside this? So, and it just basically calculates the next word. And that's at a fundamental level, that's all it's doing, which is so non-glamorous. It's just,
really, yeah.
But breaking it down to that, it's like, how did it arrive at what to choose next?
Right.
So that's where the fun part is, and that's where the magic is. And in terms of calculating, that's kind of what it's doing. If you ask it to tell you a story, what it does is inside the brain, it's got, here's what a story is, and here's the subject of the story, and here's the character. And it finds like how stories go together, and then how the words go, and how sentences work, and paragraphs, and then it generates those. So it uses what you input it, and there's some background instructions that not everybody is aware of is happening. So if you're using a chat program, it's called a system prompt, and this is that it's being told to be helpful. It's being told to be, to not use foul language, to not do anything dangerous. Like it's being told these things that you don't actually see. That system prompt is sort of guardrails on it, and then it goes and tells a story.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I've used it a little bit. I'm by no means an expert in any of it. But from what I understand, the prompt, what you're asking the AI tool to do is like super important. Like that's going to basically give all the instruction and detail to spit back what you're looking for. What do you need in a good prompt? Like how long should a good prompt be? What kinds of things should you include in a prompt to make sure that you're getting out what you expect and what you need?
So prompts right now are important, but only for right now. Eventually, it's going to be less and less important. As generative AI gets better and better, you're going to have to provide less of a prompt. Or, in a lot of cases, you can just let it. You can not necessarily craft a better prompt, but just engage in the conversation more. So you might say, here, write me a story for my 5-year-old. And it might write a story. And then you might say, well, actually, my 5-year-old doesn't like teddy bears. He likes riding his bike. And then you tell it and it now writes a story about riding a bike. You say, well, I want to teach a lesson about cleaning up after yourself. And then it writes a story about a kid who, forgets to clean up his bike and it gets lost. And all of a sudden you've got more out of your AI experience, and you didn't actually have to create a great prompt.
Right.
You just had to keep engaging. So that's like tip number one is, yes, you can spend more time on the prompt, but it also is just work with it more, play with it more, enjoy what it comes out with, try some different things, experiment more.
Yeah, so you don't have to have crafted the perfect prompt for it to work. Like you can prompt it with some things and then continue to prompt and change what you get back.
That said, this is the AI that we're experiencing right now is the worst AI we're ever going to see. And tomorrow it'll be better. The day after that, it'll be better still. So some of the things that we're doing now are going to evolve and get better. There are still really important pieces to crafting a great prompt to get better results. So you should give it instructions. The more detail you can give about that instruction, the better. So saying, in my example, it's about a 5-year-old, it's about a bike, and it's about cleaning up after yourself. The more detail, if you gave all that information at the start, you would have to interact with the AI less. There's other things like giving it examples, or giving it maybe centering it on a role. So you are Roald Dahl. Now write me a story. You're going to get a totally different experience because it's going to think Roald Dahl. That's a different part of the brain to engage in terms of storytelling than just where I was in a neutral position. So there's things like that you can add to your prompt to get a much different and a much better result for you.
So if you're working with this on a brand level and you are, getting content created from a brand point of view, like, should you be putting in like basically your brand platform? Like, this is my purpose, my positioning, this is my values, these are my tones, this is like all of that?
Absolutely. Part of creating the context is centering your request on the things that you really want to get out of it. So absolutely some brand voice, talking about your audience. There's little things like if maybe the language that's coming out of the AI is it's too high a level. So explain it like I'm 5 is a great example of how you can get
Oh, that's cool.
Or give me a metaphor for this to explain it to somebody non-technical, or something like that can give you a much different result and get you back to where you're on brand with the messages that are coming out of it. A lot of people, their first experience is that neutral, very boring, extra verbose chat.
Yeah.
Like, everybody's had that. It's no fun, right? So
It's bad.
It's bad. It's like, is this all AI is?
Yeah.
But as you start playing and experimenting, you can start saying, okay, I can actually get it to, be more concise, or I can get it to use better language than it's using, or I can make it sound uplifting, or I can make it sound clear cut and professional, or it can do all of those things. It's actually amazing at translation, and not just translation from language to language, but translation from one tone to another, or from summarizing, taking it from long to short. It's like one of the best skills that, if you can call it a skill, that AI has, is to translate things. If you think about inside this database of numbers and connections and all this stuff that it's doing, if you take the shape of language and just move it a little bit, you get a totally different thing. So that's kind of what AI can do. You have the shape that is going to become the words that it prints out, and it just moves it a little bit, or it makes it smaller, and then you get a more concise output. It's weird, but it's really cool.
It's so cool. It's exciting. I think there's a little bit of nervousness around it. It's new. Talked about this too. Whenever something's new, there's a lot of little apprehension and like, is it going to replace me, or is it going to replace people? Is it going to replace teams? But it's also, I think, something to talk about, that it's going to help enhance. And I loved your example about, talking about factories and that. So I think that's something for our audience to, I think it would be helpful to kind of explain that kind of process of a new technology and those examples.
This is a kind of technology that it's what's called a general purpose technology. It's going to affect everybody in ways that we can't really anticipate yet. It's kind of like the invention of the internet. We didn't know when, back when we had just a gray page with some text on it, that was going to turn into what we currently have. Nobody could have foreseen that. As with any sort of revolution in technology, there's going to be some major changes that happen in the society. So some people whose jobs exist today won't exist in 10, 15, 20 years. But this is true with lots of things. For example, when the radio was invented, there was a bunch of piano makers that went out of business, right? Like, there was no need to have a music making device in everybody's home anymore, because you could just turn on the radio. And TV is another one. Electricity, before we had electricity everywhere, it was ubiquitous. It was, there's times when it was spotty and you could only create it, factories couldn't run like that. As soon as electricity became available all the time, they could count on it. We had all kinds of innovations.
And that's where I think the most exciting thing of this is we don't really know where it's going to go, but when you look at history, there's always positive things that come out of a big change, and this is huge, and we're just at the start of it.
Yeah. Let's get a little bit practical. So AI, exciting. Everyone's going to leave this podcast and go put some prompts into an AI thing. But what are those AI things? Like, what are the tools? Like, what are the options for someone personally, professionally, who wants to experiment with AI?
By far the easiest, the most well-known is ChatGPT. So OpenAI is the company that provides it, well-funded, lots of big names behind that. ChatGPT is taken the world by storm. It's not the only option. In fact, it's not even maybe the best option for starting out. One of the tools that I like to recommend the most is Bing. So Bing has a chat tool. So regular Bing search is okay, but the Bing chat is really fun. It has all the power of the internet. So you can actually search it and it'll access the internet, so you can get modern, up-to-date pieces of information baked into the artificial intelligence. So it's giving you an answer that isn't just some, the brain of AI thinking. It's actually using modern data. It also can generate images for you, which is a relatively new thing, and super fun. So it's using the same technology, but you could ask it to, draw a picture of a monkey riding a skateboard in the middle of Manhattan. It'll do it.
Cool.
We're going to have to test that after this.
Yeah. So ChatGPT, Bing are kind of the two biggest, the nice thing about Bing is it's free. Yeah. So you need to use the Edge browser for it, but other than that, it's free. ChatGPT, the free version is awesome, but the paid version is so good, and it has so many more tools. It is $20 per month, so it's worth it, but not everybody is willing to gamble with that money right away. Yeah. And you kind of want to be using AI lots to get good value from that. There are also a lot of other tools that are providing a chat for AI. So there's one of the main companies behind AI that is probably not anybody who's not involved in is going to know about is a company called Hugging Face.
Good name.
Crazy name, huggingface.co. It's a terrible domain. It's a terrible name. They are a massive player in the business. Wow. So they have all kinds of things about AI, and they have their own chat. There's a tool called Claude, but it's by a company called Anthropic. So you've got lots of options. Most of these are free at this point, worth exploring to play with.
Quick confirmation about Bing. So if you're using Bing, you're getting the same AI level as the paid version of ChatGPT.
Correct.
Okay. And you're also getting the up-to-date internet information versus you're only getting up to 2021?
Early 2022.
Okay.
Is where they think. OpenAI is notoriously closed-mouthed about how recent their data is. So.
I think that's really that's a big deal, especially if you're using AI or generative AI to help with some research, and you want to do a little bit of competitor research. It's always good to be getting the most up-to-date information. So Bing would be the way to go.
If I were doing competitor research, I would definitely use Bing.
Lovely.
Now we're talking practical uses. We've talked about the practical tools, but what are the practical uses? So you mentioned competitive research. So what can you do with competitive research using AI?
So some things that are kind of fun, and I've run a few experiments. One of the things, now this isn't available with all chat tools, but there's more and more chat tools that will let you upload a document. So I grabbed a sales document. It was in Excel, and I literally just uploaded it to ChatGPT in the Pro version, because that one lets you upload files, and the free version does not. But the Pro version, I uploaded the file and said, what is the average transaction cost? And that's all I did. And it went through it. It had to go through it a couple times because the spreadsheet was messy, and it came back with this transaction cost. There's also options where it could chart that. It could draw you a chart for this. So if you had competitor data and you want to compare, competitors, sales numbers to your sales numbers, you could, draw a chart, drop it into a PowerPoint, present it to executive. There's all kinds of extra tools that just seem a little bit difficult, or you're doing it in Excel. It's maybe takes you some hours. Maybe you can't do it.
That's me.
Yeah.
That's you with the most basic of Excel functions.
It's so hard for me.
Absolutely. This is perfect for you.
Yeah.
You get a chance to you can make those fancy charts, and you don't have to do any work. The AI can do it for you. So that's one thing I think really useful use in sort of professional setting is it fixes up communication. So if you've got a customer support issue, somebody's complaining about something, you're not quite sure how to respond, AI can check your tone, make sure that you're not too angry or not coming across as
a jerk.
Not coming across.
Don't be a jerk.
Yeah. It can do some of that stuff. It can write the first draft for you, which is something I love. It's like, how do I let somebody know that this isn't our fault, this is theirs, or something like that. You can have it write that first draft, and then you can make the edits, and it'll feel a lot easier to do that than if you had to start from scratch. So communications is a big one. Any sort of marketing activities, it's, most AIs are trained with data coming from the internet. And guess where a lot of marketing happens? On the internet. So lo and behold, AI is really good at marketing. If there's anything marketing, if you're trying to generate a social media post, you can, and especially with with ChatGPT and with Bing being able to create images, you can get social pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Social is such a big one, and we often find it to be such a pain point with clients. It's just such a big job, and often when budgets aren't as big, I think that's where there's going to be a lot of helpful situations for people to use this tool. You talked a bit about communications too, and that first draft and getting that first draft. That to me is where a lot of people struggle with that first draft, and just getting something onto paper, even if that's just for briefing, is so helpful just to get the conversation started.
Yeah.
And if you are like a client who is working with an agency, that first step is so helpful too. So even if it's not the final brief or whatever the information set, just getting it down and having AI to help fine tune your notes is fantastic.
Another potential interesting one for your audience would be, it's great at summarizing. And so if you have things like contracts or warranty documents or things that are a little bit complex, anything legal, feeding those into an AI, having it summarize it, explain like I'm 5 kind of thing, that kind of stuff can, would help, rather than have to try and explain, oh, you don't have to worry about this document. Here's a summary of it. I didn't make it, the AI made it, so it's at least as honest as an AI can get. Not always honest, but it's pretty good.
Hopefully it's honest.
Yeah.
Well, actually, that's a great point, because, you hear rumors of AI not being honest. And we actually have an example. We were doing some brainstorming with ChatGPT, and it completely made something up. A word, a definition, completely made up. Challenged it, and it was like, oh yeah, sorry, that's not a real word. Like, okay, why did you it's kind of crazy.
Testing you.
Well, maybe it was.
Always check.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So there's a couple approaches to that. 100% that happens so much. There's actually a case of some lawyers using ChatGPT, and it presented what they thought was like real case law,
right.
And they presented it to a judge, and the judge threw it out because it was 100% fictitious.
Oh my God.
So they got in trouble. So I think there's a couple pieces there. There's some levers that you can pull to make that not happen as much. One of the things that by default AI is it's super creative. It doesn't put rules on itself. So it's basically asking for you to put
even the rules of being factual.
Especially the rules of being factual. Yeah.
That's so funny.
So there are, on most of the chats, there's an ability to turn down the creativity. I think on Bing, they have a precise mode, and there's a creative mode, and there's like a neutral mode. And so if you're looking for something that's more factual and you want it to not make up stuff, you need to turn on the precise mode. So that's one thing. But a lot of times you want the creativity. You want it to get funky with you. So I think that might be learn to use the tool that is there for you. But definitely challenge it. It's a computer. Yeah. It doesn't care. Ask it to regenerate. Try again. No, try again. How about again?
Yeah.
Ask it to regenerate a response. It doesn't get tired.
Or annoyed.
It doesn't get annoyed. It's like, sorry, I'll try again. It's like, it's no problem, right?
But thank it. Always say thank you. I was talking about it today. I always thank it after. And it says, you're welcome. And I'm like, great.
So there is a little bit of debate in the AI world, whether being polite and adding sort of the extra niceties of regular human language, if that actually impacts the results.
Yeah.
So some people are of the mind, if you talk to it nicely, you ask it a fully formed question, you're going to get better results. And some people are like, just write the words, really, really succinct, just say what you want it to do and hit enter and off it goes. I'm kind of on that second end of things. I've stopped saying thank you.
You're brave.
I've stopped being polite to it.
Or you said please.
It's just regenerate.
Oh.
I just hit the button and I don't.
Do it again.
It will respond with it will respond with, I'm sorry, I apologize. It'll say that stuff, but I don't care. It's just, those are just words. I want the meat of what I asked for. So please do that.
Oh, when the AI takes over, they're coming after Tim first.
Oh
Well, I'm going to be their overlord. So
Okay.
that's the plan.
Nice plan.
Mm-hmm.
Tim, I want to talk about some more sort of brand examples of how you can use ChatGPT and AI. And then I also want to talk about like getting really specific into our niche here, which is home builders. What are some of the things that AI can do for home builders?
In terms of like brand examples, because AI is really good at words, it's a calculator for words. I think some of the things that people could leverage it more for are having conversations with it. That I think, so a lot of people will use it to like, here, create some text for me that I'm going to copy and paste into my document. But it can also be really good at having a conversation and helping people sort of perform a task that maybe they weren't ready to perform. So, for example, if you have to have a negotiation with somebody, somebody who's chatting about price, or maybe if it's an employee, it's about salary or something like that. Having a conversation, a practice conversation with an AI, telling the AI you are an employee who wants a raise, and then having that conversation with the AI can be good practice. You can also apply, the principles of somebody else into that conversation. If you've felt like maybe your team is not quite producing the results you want, there might be a little bit of a thought. Maybe I should get rid of some marketing people because I can replace them with AI. But I think that's sort of missing an opportunity there. Potentially, those people, you could level them up with AI. You could give a junior marketing person AI as a tool, and they can perform at a much higher level because they have an instant mentor. They have a way to test some hypotheses very quickly. They can sound more professional if they run their wording or their language through the AI. There's a lot of ways that you can take somebody who's maybe not doing as well and level them up with AI. I think that's a real opportunity. So I think, in general, people that are going to be using AI in their business, are going to see improved results. And if you're thinking cost-cutting measures, you're going to get left behind.
Yeah, that's great. And I think obviously we're in the marketing space, and AI is really helpful in saving time. And we all need more time. And I think there's the efficiencies that come with AI. And sometimes you're working with teams, everybody's really busy, everybody's working on many things. Things move so quickly that it's like having another person there for you that's available, and you can bounce ideas off of and test things and get some quick answers, and also some like generic answers that help you determine like, no, maybe we should not go in this direction at all, because AI came up with it pretty quick. So it pushes you too.
To your point, Tim, also it helps take a somewhat junior team or inexperienced team and, push them into a different league.
Absolutely. A simple trick is ask AI, what am I missing? So take your plan of what you're going to do. You can feed your entire marketing plans. Can you think of some other things? AI is fantastic at thinking that way. Or asking, what am I missing? Or, what would you do? And then just ask it for more. So say like, give me 6 ways I could market a brand new community, and it'll give you 6. And then you say, give me 6 more, and it'll give you 6 more. And you say, give me 20 more, and it'll give you 20 more. And you can just keep going. And then your team can just pick the ones that actually work, because the AI is, some of them are going to be terrible.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the interesting part of it too, is that AI, at least today, isn't a replacement for anybody, but it is a tool that I think would make everybody better. And like, from the most junior person who, now has access to, just a huge database of everything that they can easily pull things from. Absolutely. To even the most senior person who it just makes better by being faster. Like, everybody needs a little bit of help being faster, no matter how good you are. Plug some things in, get really good at it, and it's just going to make you faster. So I think top to bottom, throughout the whole chain of things, there are benefits and opportunities.
Absolutely.
I love that. Even if you are like top of the game and, doing your thing, it still pushes you, and it helps validate a lot of things too.
Yeah, for sure.
I love using it for like asking AI, like what are some like oxymorons? What are some, like opposites of what I'm working towards? And sometimes those answers kind of like trigger an idea, like, oh, that's interesting. And then it kind of inspires some other things. So there's a lot of fun ways you could use it and, get your team to get more efficient.
Absolutely. Tim, what about content? Like content from a, AI opportunity point of view, social calendars, social content, blogs, all that sort of thing, which takes teams, tons of time to put together on a regular basis. What are the opportunities there?
That's probably where there's the most opportunity. There are some, you can be lazy. You can say, ask AI, write a blog post about XYZ, and it'll write a blog post, and it is going to be really mediocre. It's going to be boring. It's going to be, just a bunch of no good details. But what you can do to sort of supercharge your content calendar, you can ask it for ideas. You can have it get you started. That's where like AI can be really creative if you ask it, what's the opposite of what I'm trying to do, and then talk about the opposite. Or you can ask it for 50 ideas and then just pick the one you want. That's one of my personal favorites for using AI, is like, don't start with a blank screen. You start with some ideas, you type them into AI, and you just sort of get things rolling out. Content creation there's going to be some problems with it, I think, because there are going to be lots of people that are going to be lazy, and they're going to pump out, blog post after blog post, and it's going to be boring. And that's going to do things like flood, Google search engine rankings. And so Google is working hard to not let that stuff in.
I was going to ask you about that because I heard about that. I heard that if you just like ask whatever AI tool you're using to create a blog post, that there's like Google could recognize it, that it's AI. No,
Google cannot recognize it. They might think they can, but they can't. So, because it's really hard to distinguish between somebody who's just a boring writer and AI. So,
Okay.
Do you just write like a computer? Or
Are
is
you
a computer...
boring?
Yeah. You've been flagged as AI. Oh, rude feedback on my writing.
The other people that, if English isn't a first language, they get flagged falsely as well. So there's a lot of, if you misuse or you overuse a term or something like that. So generally just go with the assumption nobody can detect if it's AI or not. But it's, the results do speak for themselves. So that's what Google is trying to do. If somebody clicks on a website and it's boring content, they click off really quick.
Yeah.
Where's a bunch of fluff? I don't need to read. I'm going to go on. Google knows, based on analytics and tracking, they know when somebody has gone to a site and come back really quickly and they bounce. So Google is putting more emphasis on that metric as opposed to, trying to detect that in their search rankings.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
It's like if you're using AI in a lazy way, or if you're just being a lazy content writer, it ain't going to work.
Exactly.
But not because of the AI.
Yeah, no, just
because you're being lazy.
Yeah. So being thoughtful in your writing, if you're just writing yourself, or being thoughtful in your use of AI is really what's going to set you apart.
And the other part is to have some personality. So this is like, embrace your brand, embrace your voice, so you don't sound like run-of-the-mill average AI.
Yeah, so still the most important thing, whether or not you're writing from scratch yourself or writing with a tool, and tools such as AI, you still have to connection with your audience. And you have connection with your audience through quality, through real content, through something they want to read, not just pumping stuff out for the sake of pumping stuff out.
And being on brand.
Yeah.
Being true to your brand and your tone of voice and 100%. Who you are, and those unique little things that will get you away from sounding generic, I think. And that's what I think the worst thing about AI is. It sounds generic.
AI still can't tell a joke. Like it's
that's
really,
interesting.
it will try, but the jokes are really bad. It's like, it's worse than dad jokes.
I was going to say, is it like a dad joke? Because I think those are funny sometimes.
They can be funny as a dad.
Yeah.
I hope. But no, AI it doesn't have flair. It doesn't have personality. You can try.
Yeah.
And there are techniques that can get it a little closer, but generally speaking, it's really mostly boring. So.
Got it. That's super helpful. So get your like blocks, get your thinking going, and then make it your own.
Absolutely.
Love that.
Okay, Tim, we talked about, some really practical examples, but I think one of the things that's most interesting about AI is like the crazy things that AI can do.
OMG stuff.
Yeah, the OMG stuff. Content writing, practical, cool. Yeah, I'm going to use it. But like, what are some of the ways that AI is being used or could be used that maybe people aren't thinking about, or that are just like wild out there kind of ideas?
One of the things that's important to do is to lean into what AI is good at, or maybe avoid what it's bad at. So in terms of trying to get something fun, using the image generation tools is by far the most fun way to get some good stuff. So tools like Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, which have a little bit more setup to get involved, but if you use OpenAI's DALL-E, then you can start generating images pretty quick. Also, Bing's image generation is available for free. That's a fun one to play with. There are some tools that will do things like take an image and replace things with it, or rebuild the image, or that sort of thing. So you don't have to be very good at prompting. You could upload an image, have it make edits, that sort of thing is all well within range. Video is also fun. There's some really amazing things happening with video where they're able to superimpose a totally different background. So you don't need a green screen, you just need AI. So those are some of the fun ones that I would experiment with. There's ChatGPT Vision is by far the coolest version of that. So what you can do is you can actually upload an image with ChatGPT, and it will describe the image back to you. So long gone are the days where you have to like figure out what's this image all about. I saw one where it had like polka dot dog, or a dog with spots, and a blueberry muffin. And it was actually pretty hard by the eye test because the images were really small, but the AI could detect that stuff. That's a fun one. I think that there are some opportunities with some tools to really have some interesting chats with ChatGPT. There's a tool called Claude, which has a really big context. So you could actually upload the text of a book, that sort of level of context, and then have a chat with that.
Ooh, like a chat with a character?
Yeah.
Ooh.
So you could have a chat with a character. What would...
Legolas? What would Legolas say?
Those books are pretty big. That might be beyond the size.
That's what I'm waiting for.
But
some Lord of the Rings conversations.
Things where I've used that would be if there's maybe there's a book in the nonfiction realm that you want to give me a summary of this, and what are these main principles and stuff. So it's actually made you can read a book much quicker with using AI for this. So just upload the text of the book, and then you can with PDF if you've got it, or I think it'll also use other formats as well. So that's one. My one little experiment that I really like is if you're trying to do a little data analysis and you don't quite know your way around Excel, being able to upload your data and then have it create a chart for you, or have it pull out a piece of information from you. It's a really simple way to do it, but super powerful, and lets somebody not have to become a data analyst to figure it out.
Time saving.
Yeah.
I love it. Do you have any, doesn't have to be in this space, any space where you're like, that is the coolest thing ever?
I think with the video, one of the things that I think a lot of people are thinking is AI is going to, it's going to take over some of the video stuff. One thing I've been sort of noticing is I don't think we actually know when AI is actually doing a good job. Like I think a lot of people think, well, I could tell if there's AI involved. So if you're creating a video, you might be thinking, okay, well, has AI been involved in creating this video? If you can tell, it's done poorly. It's the ones you can't tell that are done really well. And so I think there's a lot more AI in video, images, and in text than people know, because it's being done really well.
Blurring the lines. Goodness. Okay.
Is there anything like wild and crazy? I've heard of some things that are like AI. Basically, you put a photo of a room into AI, and then you're like, design this in a mid-century modern style, or design this in a, design this in a minimalist style or maximalist style, and then it's just like, here's some furniture and examples and all that kind of stuff. Like, is that something that's happening in a big way?
Absolutely. There's an interior design tool that I was reading about the other day that is exactly that. You upload a photo and it will put the furniture in for you. It will repaint the walls, all that.
Oh, wow.
You just ask it to.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think that has amazing. A lot of opportunity in the home builder space as well. Even if it's just like a fun addition to like your website to be like, hey, here's our home plans, and just have fun with it. What would it look like if you were like, I want to design it this way or that way? And really just, part of what you want on your website is just people spending time there and interacting with it and having a good experience and a brand experience and connections. So how do you do that? Give them cool tools to play with and allow them to just interact with your products and have a good time.
That's so interesting because it's like Pinterest on steroids, really, right? Yeah. Could you imagine having like all of your favorite interior things pinned on your Pinterest board and then like giving that to AI to like furnish your space? So cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that gets me excited.
Totally.
Okay.
Very excited.
It could even open up some markets if somebody is, if somebody's in the market for something unique, but most homes are being built to suit a lot of people, not a specific person. Now this person could imagine, what if I paint this wall purple? And they can see it, and they can Personalization. Yeah.
That's my favorite word. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Tim. This was such a great conversation, and I'm sure we're going to be talking a lot more about it. So I don't know. I have a feeling we'll talk to you again sometime in the near future.
Probably very, very soon. I'm sure we could have Tim on every 2 weeks, and there'd be something new to talk about.
AI with Tim fun. Part 1.
Very fun.
Actually, new podcast coming soon. AI with Tim.
Ask Tim. Ooh, maybe we'll do like a live or something with you. That would be fun too.
Well, that would be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm game.
All right.
This was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Tim. That was an awesome conversation.
That was really fun.
Yeah.
Lots of learnings and interesting facts and lots of stuff to use. Like I left and I'm like, I want to go use everything right now. Yeah. What am I going to plug into Bing and ChatGPT and image search and just do weird and crazy things?
Exactly. And it's such like a new space too. So I think getting comfortable talking about it, which I hope this episode, that's what it did. And then we'll dive into some deeper things in the future. But let's talk about takeaways.
Yeah, let's.
I'll go first. I'm going to do a Jordan thing and say I have a 2-part takeaway. A Jordan thing. So the biggest thing from this episode is that obviously AI is new. It's exciting. There's a lot of talk. It's like a buzzword. People are using it loosely, I think. But when you think about there's a little bit of fear about AI and like, what is it going to do to my team? What is it going to do to my business? And after talking to Tim, I think it's pretty clear that AI is a helpful tool, that it's here to enhance your team, make your team more efficient, make your team more effective, get people thinking and inspired and push even more senior teams. So that's, I guess, my biggest like overall takeaway about AI and what it could do to help the home builder space and really everybody. The little kind of interesting takeaway that people could use right away is to use Bing for the most up-to-date information. That's something I'm not sure if everybody knows, that ChatGPT has a little bit of a cutoff date. We don't know what that is for like its access to information and the internet. Could be 2021, maybe 2022, I'm not sure. But Bing uses the internet as it is for searching. And when you're doing things like competitor analysis, that's really important to get the most up-to-date like scan of what's on people's websites, or businesses' websites. So for me, it's like use Bing as well as ChatGPT. Don't forget about Bing. And Bing is free, and it's using ChatGPT 4 or the latest version as well, and you could use it for free.
My takeaway from today's episode maybe isn't necessarily like specific to today's episode, but if you've been a regular listener, you'll know that every season I have a word. And I think this being the second episode, I'm ready to declare my word for season 3. And the word is going to be connections. We talked a lot about connections with Dan in episode 1, and we talked a little bit about connections today in relation to AI. And I think the important thing in sort of connection to this episode and how it relates to the takeaway for this episode is AI is a great tool, and you can pump stuff out and you can go to town and make a lot of content and, increase your posting and all those different kinds of things. But if you're not making true connections with your audience, if you're not making connections based on your brand and who you are, it's not going to work. Like, you can have 15 times as much content as the next group, and it's not going to make any difference if there's no ability for people to connect with it and have a connection with your brand. And that's because that's what it's all about. Like, it's not about quantity, it's about quality. So use AI, get faster, get better, but make sure you're still focusing on connections with your audience and connections to your brand. So that's my takeaway from this episode, and my word for season 3 is connections.
Making a statement right at the start.
Early.
Episode 2, connections is his word. I don't know. We'll see. I'm not 100% sold that it's connections yet.
Wow. Okay.
This has been Build Up, a ZGM podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and subscribe on your favorite listening app. Thanks to Shelby, our editor and producer, Scott for our original music, and you for listening along. Be sure to follow us on your favorite social platform at Build Up Podcast.